We're going to turn, though, now to politics, where a new report has suggested that Hillary Clinton may have given preferential treatment to Clinton Foundation donors while she was Secretary of State. The Associated Press is reporting that a majority of the people from outside the U.S. government who spoke to or met with Clinton during her time at the State Department also donated to her family foundation. Donald Trump, in fact, is accusing Clinton of simple pay-for-play.
It is impossible to figure out where the Clinton Foundation ends and the State Department begins. It is now abundantly clear that the Clintons set up a business to profit from public office. They sold access and specific actions by and really for, I guess, the making of large amounts of money. We also just learned today that more than half the people who met with Hillary Clinton from outside government while she was Secretary of State were donors to the Clinton Foundation. The specific crimes committed to carry out that enterprise are too numerous to cover in this speech.
John Heilemann, managing editor, Bloomberg Politics, co-host, executive producer of The Circus, which thankfully returns next month.
Bring it back.
On Showtime, a division of CBS. Fair to say, there's some grist for the mill.
Lots of grist. We got more than 3 rings.
Credit where credit's due, in terms of turns of phrase. Yeah. It's impossible to see where the Clinton Foundation ends and the State Department begins. Donald Trump on message, optically then, for the Clinton campaign.
It's a good line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good line. It's a good, crisp, concise line politically, and these are not. This is a complicated story, and what's interesting about, in politics, when you have stories that are actually complicated, genuinely complicated. A lot of stories are not that complicated. Both sides obviously try to distill the story down in a way that's somewhat misleading, right? And so both Trump, in that bite we just showed of Trump, a number of things that he said there are 100% true. Some of them are kind of partially true. Some of them are just completely false. But that line of it's hard to tell where the foundation stops and where the foundation starts and the State Department stops, whatever that precise formulation is, it's very good because it does point to a truth, which is that there's this blurriness around the whole intermingling of foundation money, foundation donors, the policy, access, and the part that Trump's really not even really laying out yet, which is because he says this is all set up for personal profit. Well, there's no, at least in this AP story and what we now know, there's no insinuation of that. Mm-hmm. Like how did the Clintons profit personally? But in fact, what we know separately is that, Bill Clinton's speaking fees, Hillary Clinton's speaking fees, there's a fair amount of interconnection also between their speaking fees and donors to the foundation. So this story has more beats as people start to connect more dots, and Trump is starting to kind of lay down the tracks for how that's going to work going forward.
And we're seeing a lot of it conflate. I'm reminded of something they used to say about the Pat Riley Knicks. If you foul every time down the floor,
right,
they can't call it every time.
Right.
And we've seen that benefit Donald Trump, really, through the primary season into the general election season. Are we seeing then perhaps a benefit here for Hillary Clinton in that as the waves keep coming here, after a while people just accept that, oh, that's just an issue that I can decide to care about or not?
There's that, and yes, it's certainly the case that, the big question out there is, who are the available voters left, right, that are not already, people who think that Hillary Clinton's corrupt. There are a lot of people like that. Millions of people in the country think she's lying and crooked and all that stuff. This obviously deepens that problem that she has with people who are never going to vote for her anyway, right? The big question is, who are the available voters left in the electorate who are making a decision between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, number one. And number two, who are the Democratic voters who would be inclined normally to vote for a Democrat who might just decide to stay home in this instance, right? And there's the same problem on the Republican side. A whole bunch of Republican voters who probably aren't really choosing between Clinton and Trump, are choosing between, can I bring myself to vote for Trump, or do I just decide, both these two candidates are horrible, I'm just going to stay home on Election Day? Those are the big questions. But for the Clinton people, this is they basically thought that everything kind of related to her emails was now going to be kind of background noise going forward. The Comey, his decision, FBI Director Comey's decision not to indict or pursue an indictment meant we're out of the woods politically. And all of a sudden now, this foundation piece, this is not about the home server, this is not about classified material, this is about another, but related to emails, because the email is what the evidence of it is. It's like another new political headache, and there's 15,000 of these emails now that we don't know what's in them, but we know the FBI has them. Some of them may be email that she destroyed and said was personal. She's never said whether foundation email was regarded as personal or work-related, and it's going to get released between now and election day.
Well, to say nothing of the fact that, you know, WikiLeaks and dropping,
there's
they
that.
dropped
Yes,
it, they said part 1,
yes,
which suggests a part 2.
Right. So there's a whole other. There's between now and November, normally people talk about October surprises. They're talking about things happening in the world, you know, a revolution in Iran, or, you know, a problem in the Crimea, whatever. These are not surprises. We now know that there are going to be email-related developments that are going to play out between now and election day, and what the consequences are will depend on what's in the email and what the implications of those things are.
And I know it will also depend on how people view the idea of access, as you put it.
Yeah, well, you know, there really is what's clear. I don't think anybody, just if you read these emails and if you know anything about how politics works, the idea that foundation donors who have like multiple motives, that they want to do good work in the world, and no one, literally no one, disputes the idea that the Clinton Foundation did good work in the world. I shouldn't say literally no one. There are cranks on the far right who say the Clinton Foundation is all just a giant racket. But most people look at what they've done in sub-Saharan Africa on AIDS, on malaria, and say they've done good work, right? The question is, that donors are buying, what are they buying besides good works? These emails illustrate, the ones we've seen so far, something we already kind of know, that they're also buying access to the Secretary of State that normal human beings don't have, right? So what else are they buying? And the Clinton campaign says, here's the bright line. She would have met with these people anyway. Who cares about access? What's the difference? If there was no resulting policy change, nothing to see here. Other people say, you know, just the idea that, like, if I gave $1 million to the Clinton Foundation, that meant I could get a meeting tomorrow with Hillary Clinton, they think that seems really scummy. And that's the kind of, the Clinton campaign wants to draw the bright line. Access, no problem, as long as nothing changed on policy grounds. The Trump campaign wants to say, no. Access itself is a problem, and then there's this whole web of, potentially a web of personal enrichment, that we're going to draw the lines to that.
And I want to get you headed on this one.
Yeah.
As then we see a Trump campaign really stay on message then with regard to the conflation of all these different ideas.
So far.
We have also seen, though, as it's happening, we've seen the cornerstone of his campaign now come into real question with regard to immigration. It's a softening that led to him at one point laud the immigration actions of President Obama and President Bush just in the last 48 hours. What do you make of the seismic effect of that?
I like, because we have a little time on this program, and you're a smart guy, we can talk about these things in a little slightly more complicated way. You know, everybody talks about the pivot, right? Like, you know, that traditionally you run a primary campaign and then you move to the center in the general election. And everybody's been waiting for Trump to do that, and he hasn't done it. Now this is evidence what we've seen in the last few days of him actually trying to do that. One of the questions that we have in this new modern age of communication, where video lives forever, where the internet's always there, where you have a Clinton campaign with millions of dollars of advertising to be able to go out and remind people of what Donald Trump said, is how easy is it to pivot, and whether pivots are possible, especially when the things you said were so incendiary and so declarative. There is video evidence of Donald Trump not just talking about building the wall, but of praising Dwight Eisenhower's Operation Wetback, where millions of illegal undocumented workers from south of the border were put in detention centers and sent back, right?
And sent back to die in a most inhumane
And
way.
so now he says, well, no, I never said that's what I wanted to do. It's like, well, actually you did, you know, and we can show you where you did. And so it makes it harder. It also, you know, there raises a question, how far you pivot without starting to lose some of the enthusiasm of your core supporters. That's always a problem politicians have to manage. But, you know, everyone assumed Trump was going to do this at some point, but it's very late in the day, and how effectively you could do it when you put such bright markers in the ground over this issue in particular, which is the issue that, as you said, cornerstone of his campaign, of his appeal. You know, kudos to him for having some message discipline, and kudos to him for finally trying to do what everyone kind of expected him to do, like a normal general election nominee. It's really hard, though, given it's Donald Trump and the things he's said in the past.
And just how few weeks we are out, it lends another cinematic quality. John Heilemann, you're no colonel, you're the whole cob. We appreciate it.
Okay.